fundamentally, what do PMs, program managers, project managers, portfolio leaders, any of that niche, what do we do essentially? We apply discipline. We understand what's going on to reach an end. We apply best practices, and we understand the notion of successful delivery to drive results. That is core to what we do. A lot of times in program delivery, you're the advocate of whoever you represent. So if I am a software company and we're selling to customers, I'm really an advocate of the company versus the customer directly. And you really have to change that mindset. How does the customer think? And then how do you need to evolve the strategy, the product, and the delivery? And it's a very, very different mindset. It's not just getting the voice of the customer, it's pretending you are the customer and meeting with customers. We are constantly using different systems, right? Like ChatGPT gives different results than Gemini, which gives different results from Grok or any of the others, right? So you have to understand and tailor not only your own prompt engineering or your the way you query, but the best vehicle for the job. You can generate code, you can suggest code. I have never in my life been in a place personally where I can suggest code to people. But now you kind of can. If you get a little flavor of vibe coding, you can put a query, you can send it out. So extensive daily use AI to learn AI, and then quickly prototype and mock up and POC, all very effective uses.
Today on Beyond the Boardroom, I am thrilled to welcome Brian Johnson. Brian is a co-founder and head of operations at Mocha.app and Flawview.ai. Brian's career spans both fast-paced startups and large-scale enterprises. He previously served as a VP of program management at companies like Code and Theory, YML, leading global teams to deliver product launches across mobile, web, and AI platforms. At Marketo, he provided operational leadership through its post-acquisition phase with Vista, shaping R&D and execution and strategic delivery. Brian recently launched Mocha.app, a social wellness app now available on the App Store, and is gearing up to release Flawview.ai, a smarter defect detection platform for manufacturing industry. I'm really excited to talk all things about program management, operations, and breaking the glass ceiling with Brian today. Brian, welcome to the show. I'm thrilled to have you here.
Thanks, Amrita. I'm really excited to be seeing you and providing whatever information and insight I can.
Absolutely. So, Brian, let's start with that. I'm very excited to hear more about your startup venture. Would you mind talking a little bit about Mocha and Flawview.ai?
Mocha.app is a brand new application for social fitness. So it's designed to combat a lot of the loneliness epidemic and some of the challenges that people have just getting out and doing things with people. A lot of people are stuck in front of their phones, they're stuck in front of their computers, and they kind of tend to retreat. And this app is just designed to encourage the wellness aspect that comes from social fitness, from engaging with people, right? The other startup that I'm the CEO and co-founder of is Flawview.ai, and that it does void detection for X-ray tomography and metals manufacturing. So it kind of uses AI to provide a better algorithm to quickly spot defects, which is obviously very important for the quality control process. So very different things, but fundamentally a very interesting and new venture, right, that I can be a part of on both sides.
I'm so excited about that, Brian, and I'm pretty sure being in program management, wearing multiple hats, helps you juggle between two different organizations as well. Let's start with that shift. You held senior roles in program management and operation leadership across companies like Marketo, FilmPrec, Experian, and Code and Theory.
Yep.
So what inspired you to take leap into founding and advising startups?
So obviously being embedded as you are in Silicon Valley and knowing a lot of people, it's such an important part of the day-to-day culture to just see people, they leave, they go to a startup, they're successful, they make a lot of money, or they really find and embrace an exciting idea. And that passion drives them to do the same. So in my case, I was very interested in the autonomy and the independence. And I was just having a conversation with a neighbor who's a doctor doing his residency in general medicine. But his father sold a startup to Microsoft a number of years ago, funding them very well. And he's got the same passion and drive. So he engaged with the Y Combinator partner match. And for those of you that don't know, Y Combinator's famous VC firm, in the Bay Area. Got OpenAI started, and I think and many others, right? And they have a partner matching service that he was able to take advantage of to find some partners and start his business. And he says, Brian, you need to do this too. I mean, you keep talking to me about it. Why don't you do it? So I did the same thing. I got involved with the startup matching. We submitted to Y Combinator, and away we go. So that's how I got started.
Love that. And yes, absolutely. I think Y Combinator has over the years helped so many startups to really become unicorns.
Yeah.
This is very exciting. So was there any specific moment or a project that made you feel either ready or restless enough to make that transition?
Restless enough, yeah. So the impetus of seeing him, again, my neighbor, when we were talking about his idea, and I was providing a little bit of lightweight, part-time consulting. And I really saw how the idea could take off and how he's capitalizing in his on AI and all the different platforms and agentic AI, which is kind of, in the last couple of months become more and more prominent with large organizations. And I really saw this is kind of the beginning of the growth curve. Right. So this is something you can kind of jump on. It's the Wild West in many ways. You can get out there with great ideas. You can get out there with a partial idea. Or you can get out there with people that know people, and you can just make it happen. So it's got kind of the same zeitgeist as, many years ago when with the .com boom, and then you had the mobile boom, and now we have the AI boom. So this is a great time to do it. I really hope to kind of capitalize on that.
How different does decision making feel for you as a founder versus a VP of program delivery? Do you approach problem solving and execution differently?
Very differently. So when you're embedded in an org, whether it's a smaller org in the program role or in operations or delivery, or a large company or an enterprise, you have to have a different focus. When you're in a startup, you're relentlessly focused on a couple of things: the product, customer acquisition, and money, right? And those have a very strong influence on everything you do all day, every day, right? So first, the customer focus, it's very front and center because you are the face of the company. You no longer can say, okay, let's send, the salespeople out or the C levels out or whatever. It's you. You are talking to the customer. You are representing the product. You are representing delivery. So it's even more than in professional services, which probably a lot of your audience is. Even more than that, it's very much you are the face. Next, you have to be very hands-on with problem solving. There are not other people that you can kind of lean on. A lot of times when you're doing, say, software delivery in a program management environment, you can call the tech lead or Slack people, or you have different individuals in the organization. Then you can say, okay, I need you to do this and you do this. And that's an essence of the program management work. But it really changes when that person is you. You have to figure it out. And luckily, we live in a time of AI where you can ask. So, for example, coming from program delivery, I have never done a marketing campaign, right? I haven't done branding. I haven't done it personally. I have not personally done an app store submission, and all those things I've had to do in the last couple of weeks and months because there's no one else to do it. And luckily we have a new tool, but still. Another is budgeting and money. You really have to watch the budget. You really have to have that focus. When you're running large scale programs, budgeting is you set your initial budget and then you track your spend, and that's all great. But then when you have your own business, suddenly you have an expenditure that you were completely unaware of. For example, you have to do the hosting, and you have to get the account with AWS, and you have to start paying for Zoom calls and all these other things that you're not necessarily familiar with. And then if you go on a trip, it's you, right? So you really have to start thinking about ways to get funding. And part of that is customer acquisition, and part of that is getting funding for your business. So depending on how you want to balance or blend that, who you know, do you have angels? Do you have Y Combinator? Do you have venture capital? What do you have that you can bring to bear and help solve that problem, right? And then finally, you learn a lot of things, like I mentioned earlier, that are outside the program domain. So for some people, that's very exciting. It builds in some ways upon what you know, but in a lot of ways, you really have to pivot and just learn. So all very exciting.
As you said, a lot of ground you have to cover as a program manager. When you're driving a program operations team, you have to wear multiple hats. That part is similar. However, what reduces also is the scale. Like you are one-man army, at least sometimes, depending on how big or small your team is. There are certain elements that could be very new, but yes, I also agree that there is a lot of hustle that is required that as a program manager, it's built in, right? You're a program manager, you're a known hustler, right?
Yeah, of course, you have to
I
be,
feel
right?
that that's a lot of similarity from that perspective. The reason I'm leaning towards seeding these questions in is that I've heard from many program and operation leaders about hitting a glass ceiling in their roles after a certain point. What's after your VP of program operations, and after that what? Many times organizations do not have that direct path for next one. And it's not only for program management, it
Right.
could be for any role for that matter.
Mhm.
But on a technology side, for example, you could see there is this whole path to CTO level, on product side there is whole path to CPO level. So when it comes to program operation, that is sometimes not very clear, if you will. So what's your
Sure.
take on that? And your view, what are some realistic and rewarding next step for those looking to grow beyond that?
Certainly. So you brought up a couple things there, so I'll kind of take them in pace, right? So fundamentally, what do PMs, program managers, project managers, portfolio leaders, any of that niche, what do we do essentially? We apply discipline. We understand what's going on to reach an end. We apply best practices, and we understand the notion of successful delivery to drive results. That is core to what we do. That's valuable in a lot of different avenues. And the question is really how to position yourself and pivot to get there. So you'll find, for example, say you want to be a CEO, right? Being a CEO of a startup, a lot of people can declare that as long as you decide you have the idea, you have the people, you have the partner, whatever you want, and that's your vehicle. Sure. CEOs often, however, they tend to come from more of a sales background or like a management consulting background. So CEO is a little more unusual unless you do a startup, right? So if you want to pivot a little bit, operations, the COO role is a fabulous natural extension for program management because you're watching the operations of the org. Now, you will have to tailor this if you're pursuing the COO avenue with the industry that you're familiar in. So, for example, if you're doing program management for software delivery, right, you probably wouldn't necessarily want to pick something really out there like, petroleum refinery, right? You would want something kind of near to your expertise. As you get into operations at a VP, SVP level, you start branching into areas that a lot of program managers have not seen or touched. So, for example, you're familiar with SOWs, usually. You're familiar with contracts, usually. Well, now you have to do contracts for fields and different areas of the business that you're not accustomed to. So, legal, HR, hiring across the board, right? Those are things that are often within that role. You've done it to get developers, you've done it to get people. Now you have to do it across the organization. But either way, it's a natural extension. You are responsible for executing the operations across the company. Another avenue is the CIO or CTO role. Now that requires more technical acumen. So people like you, Amrita, that have a lot of that skill, that's a more easy transition. For people that are not in the technical field, for example, if you do business program management, right, you may want to consider more the operational role because there is a lot of overhead in learning that. But if that's your niche, go for it. CIO and CTO, they're very squishy in terms of what do they really do within orgs. And you can shape that based on your expertise and based on your knowledge and based on your contacts. So those are two very clear, very lucrative, and very interesting career tracks potentially. And then, of course, entrepreneurship. Oh, you could be COO, you can provide advisory services. There are a lot of opportunities there that you can take. Either way, companies need what we do. They don't always know it, but they absolutely need it. And Rita, if you recall, one of the Mang companies had hired us while we were working together at Marketo to do their very first cloud implementation. And they sat the team down in a war room, and their team did not know how to provide the services that they were signed up to do. There was just a completely new paradigm. This particular tech company, one of the very largest, was very strong in product and very strong in engineering. And they had a product and they had successfully sold it, but they didn't know how to implement it. They didn't know how to deliver it. They didn't know how to do it on time. And that really required a lot of us working together to help them see that. It was not something that they knew going in, but it's something that a lot of people that have done the work understand. So the question is just how do we market and advocate for ourselves?
I have seen this challenge that a lot of time people don't understand what program management or operations do until you take it away.
Yes.
Then things. So I've heard one of my colleagues, he mentioned that, hey, nobody knew what I did in this project until I was taken away, and that's when everything breaks down.
Yes.
So I think that is the criticality program management operations bring, the ability to execute and translate the vision into reality. That's what the core strength. And I feel like you also talked about a couple of things that really resonated. I feel COO role, which is more operations and really driving the business from actual execution perspective, that in a way very, very, very aligned in terms of program operation. And similarly, of course, CIO, CTO, when you are more on the technical side of things, right? So I feel these are definitely good transitions, and program leaders always doesn't necessarily need to feel that, hey, we are limited by the roles that we have, because sky
Absolutely
is
not.
the limit from that perspective. I feel where we need to shift the mindset in certain way, that how do we get more exposure towards the business part of it, build alliances with other functions like finance, budget. This is anyway part of a program manager's role, if you will, knowing about how the program is delivered with budgets and things like that. But getting more insight in terms of really thinking holistically, I feel that's a key to really position yourself as well.
Yes.
You've moved from driving delivery to shaping vision and GTM. What's the mindset shift required to evolve from executor to strategist? Because many times program operation is constant mode of execution, firefighting, but sometimes you have to really step back and look and be more strategic about it. What does it take from your perspective?
Right. So a couple of things. So one is a clear product focus or a service, depending on what you're doing in terms of moving to this more of an oversight type or strategic role, right? You have to understand not just how do I build this part of the product, but you have to understand what is the strategy? Why are people using it? How are they using it? And if you launch a product and then it completely pivots or a particular avenue flops but another avenue opens, you have to be able to pivot quickly. It's a very different mindset, particularly for people that are governed, as many program managers are, under implicit or explicit contracts. You have to watch the scope and you say, here is our scope and this is the scope and we're going to deliver the scope and here's the budget and here's the people and the time and everything else, right? With this, with setting up a new venture or a more strategic venture, you have to accept the idea that the product may change. And instead, you put in speed and flexibility. Now, many of us have thought and understood how to get things delivered in a faster or more expeditious way. But really, being able to deliver something to market quickly and pivot it and change it, and then all the things that go around it to get it out to market and to get it being successful requires a different mindset. So you have to have the strategic idea, but then you have to pivot if that strategy doesn't work, right? The last piece is really putting yourself in the seat of the customer. Because a lot of times in program delivery, you're the advocate of whoever you represent. Okay. So if I am a software company and we're selling to customers, I'm really an advocate of the company versus the customer directly. And you really have to change that mindset. How does the customer think? And then how do you need to evolve the strategy, the product, and the delivery? And it's a very, very different mindset. It's not just getting the voice of the customer, it's pretending you are the customer and meeting with customers. And this is a little bit different. This is more, a lot of people think that's more of like biz development or account management or strategy. Yes, it's all those things, but you have to embed yourself and understand how to deliver the product to market more quickly and get yourself in the seat of that customer. And that will help you evolve your strategy. Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. You touched a very important point here. So many times program operations, they treat internal stakeholders as the customer, because that's what you deliver
Yes.
to, right?
Yes.
That's what
Right.
your customer is. But actually having the end customer is in mind is very, very critical, because at the end of the day, we are all working towards the same goal, delivering something for the company. And at the end, the customer of the company is what that matters. Yes, you have internal customers, but focus is not always that. Like sometimes you might need to make trade-offs within your internal customers if it serves your external customers better, right? So I think those are the trade-off, and that's the mindset we'll have to get into. And I'm not saying that program operation doesn't have it, all I'm trying to say is that is very, very critical, right? To your point.
And you got to change and be flexible. And the old way of thinking has to evolve.
Absolutely. Let's shift to little bit to both of our favorite topic of Gen AI, right? How do you see it impacting program and operation works for next 2-3 years?
Okay, so 2-3 years is the key point because we have some difficulty seeing past that, right? But one of the things that I've noticed is that what AI does, it's very good at content generation. Videos, you can automate a lot of the creative work. You can automate coding. You can automate documentation. You can do a lot of problem solving. You can run experiments, but it does not do the end-to-end delivery that program management does. Right now, this is a bit of a sell, right? Because you don't often see, like we talked about earlier, program management is not the flagship organization of many enterprises, right? Where they say, how good is the program management? It's just something that happens behind the scenes. Well, AI is the essence of behind the scenes. So you query it and it provides a response, but it does not provide holistic thinking of all the different pieces that are moving and then how to get to an end. So I can ask it how to do certain things. How do I formulate a particular, like I mentioned earlier, a marketing campaign for my new product? And how do I code a specific thing to handle geolocation for notifications with certain parameters? You can reach out to AI and involve it for these things. But you cannot say, if I have this more or less successful technical thing that I've just built, how does that impact all the other lines of business? And what do I need to do to reach that conclusion? That's what we do. We track how to get things from A to B. Irrespective, you have scope, you have budget, you have resources, you have time, all true. That is fundamental. But either way, you need to know all those different things. And that's what we built. That's the secret sauce of program management, right? It's not the usual triad. It's not scope, budget, time, and people. It's how do I get from A to B successfully to deliver results for the company, for my team, for me, and so on, right? And that's kind of the mindset that we need to have. AI doesn't do that. AI may in the distant future as it gets more acumen, but it doesn't play the long game. You ask it a question, it gives you a response, but it doesn't say, here's how you execute with all the other pieces that you have to interplay in your mind. There's other variables. Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. A big part of program management is also about those human dynamics, right? Like different silos and orchestration of making sure that everybody is aligned on things. I think that's a very key aspect of it. I do feel like Gen AI can help to increment or make program managers more effective or make their lives easier in short term, at least, to do some of the busy work many times program manager might need to do for to get things done. I feel that that's where probably a big change in terms of efficiency you would see that will come through as well. What is one of the most compelling use cases that you would love to see Gen AI solve when it comes to program operations? Anything that you've been thinking about?
Yes, I've been thinking about that a lot because I use it so much, right? So it's tempting to put automatic fencing around flagging outliers in programs, right? So when I do delivery for a program or a project, I want to know, are there issues with our velocity? Are there issues with the budget? Are there issues with people? Like, where are the outliers and how do you flag them? And if you put in those inputs, even like with agentic AI, you can reach out to different systems and you can see if there's problems with the budgeting system or if there's problems with Jira or there's problems with your overall program plan or other groups or organizations within your company, right? You can flag those. But I think there's not as much value add there as really understanding and helping with better collaboration between the teams. Like if a entity or AI has a better understanding of helping people work through challenges together, it will gather more momentum in that area and it will be able to provide better suggestions and actually be able to proactively reach out to engage. So instead of leaving people on islands and forcing us to do kind of the island hopping between them, it will provide some of that service. That's how I see it really evolving. It needs to learn more about what we do, and then it will naturally make better suggestions and inputs based upon what we query.
Are there specific AI tools or use cases that you are already experimenting with in your startup work?
So because of the new nature of the business for me personally, and also my business partners, we are constantly using different systems, right? Like ChatGPT gives different results than Gemini, which gives different results from Grok or any of the others, right? So you have to understand and tailor not only your own prompt engineering or your the way you query, but the best vehicle for the job. Like I find that if I'm trying to visualize data in a 3D space, I will use a different tool than if I'm trying to create a customer facing video, right? So using it daily, but I get walkthroughs for using unfamiliar software. I get walkthroughs for unfamiliar processes. And then I use AI to learn AI. This is the biggest thing. Like, I don't know how much of this audience, obviously a lot of your audience is probably technical, and they understand that there's so much founded on Python in terms of machine learning, AI, and overall execution within this realm. So I use AI to learn AI. I use AI to learn Python, and I'm sure everybody's got their own platform of choice. Some people use PyTorch or whatever else, Google Colab. Either way, it provides an excellent and outstanding and very tailored way to curate how you go through your educational process and learn all these different things. So you understand AI better, you can take advantage of it better. And then finally, third thing, build quick prototypes and apps, right? So Lovable is really good for creating like quick React apps. And you have a lot of other vehicles as well. You can generate code, you can suggest code. I have never in my life been in a place personally where I can suggest code to people. But now you kind of can. If you get a little flavor of vibe coding, you can make a query, you can send it out. So extensive daily use AI to learn AI, and then quickly prototype and mock up and POC, all very effective uses.
The way you put it, use AI to learn AI. Now, I have done it myself. I know everybody is doing it to learn different kind of skills or about a language or how things work. But the term use AI to learn AI puts it in a different perspective.
It's very effective because it opens up a whole new world, and we are getting smarter at querying AI. I can't tell you how frustrating it is when you go on LinkedIn and everybody's got their little cute AI posts, and someone says, I did exactly this prompt and I got this result. So I'll go in and I'll put exactly that prompt and I will get a radically different result. Is it a hallucination, as they say, or is it a dynamic, or is it information learned? And you have to figure out how it's thinking and how you're thinking, and tailoring the suit gives you better results, right? I sound like an advertisement here, but it really does work.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of it, like really experimenting, and you can see how there are differences, even from model to model. So it could be the same prompt you start using across like ChatGPT, Gemini, and different kind of models, and it could generate different results. And really trying to figure out why behind it is very interesting. How should program leaders start skilling up or thinking differently to stay relevant in this Gen AI powered landscape?
So that's a great question I've been asking myself and been forced to do. And so have probably most of your audience, right? So building acumen in the core understanding of how this new model will transform how we work is incredibly important, right? So you figure probably engineering teams are either going to, they're already either shrinking or being composed differently, right? You look at creative, a company I just worked for, several of the executives left and founded their own organization that does branding, design, and app builds, like creative oriented app builds, completely via AI, right? You really have to be able to adopt and understand which of these tool sets you can use, which trends like agentic AI or the new super intelligence, right? There are a lot of things that we can kind of grasp out at. But fundamentally, it's probably more figuring out how to market ourselves because, as I said earlier, our skill set is still needed. It is not being heralded from the rooftops, but it is absolutely still needed. If you need to get something done, it's not query and response. It's iterative, it's tuning, it's pivoting, and it's understanding all the different variables. That's what makes program management and delivery so great and important. And that's just what we have to keep in mind. How do we pull these other tool sets? So we have a new tool set. Oh, instead of Jira, now I've got Grok. Okay, well, how do I use that, right? It's just understanding where we're at in the environment and then how do we move forward. It's my humble opinion, and I hope it works for all of us.
Absolutely. I think that is very wise, right? And also harnessing AI to upskill yourself so that you can manage AI expectation from that perspective. Because at the end of the day, there are multiple tools for multiple things. But we have to have a mindset of tool agnostic. There is so many tools, but there is no one tool that can do everything that you need to do.
That's right.
So
That's
really
right.
understanding what is that ecosystem is going to be and how we can leverage that to fullest to really deliver and be ahead of the curve. Now, someone who's lived through multiple transformation, what excites you the most about where we are headed next?
So part of it is what I've attempted to do over the last year, and that is to shape or join new ventures that involve and capitalize on the new ways of working and the new technologies. Although the future isn't written and we'll see where it grows, either way, it instills in us a drive, a need to adapt, to be competitive, and to figure out how can we influence the next big thing. So often I know many individuals that have just gotten into the ground floor of a company, low-end dev, QA, the company has just exploded and they find themselves very successful and very influential just based on good placement and decision making. This is part of that, right? Did you join OpenAI early or whatever else, right? But it's also a little bit of positioning. And again, we have to figure out how do we take our skills and apply it in a way that can leverage these different tools. If we can deliver faster, right, then we're going to make a big difference. I'm dating myself a little bit here, but I remember when the iPhone came out and all the app development really changed around that. That was like, almost 20 years ago, right? It required people to get new expertise in new coding and technologies, but also to figure out how people will use it, how people will change, and then how do we inject ourselves into those environments to make those influential decisions or actually be the influencers. And that's kind of where we're at right now. So this is a very exciting time, and I'm really encouraged to see what you and your audience are going to be able to do.
This is the exciting time. There's so many new things. And again, as I said, sky's the limit. And we need to definitely be very focused about how do you position ourselves? How do you leverage the latest technology? Because now ramping up in a technology is not as time consuming as it used to be, right? If you have a good idea with AI, with vibe coding, you can create and give that idea a life. So that uplift has reduced. I'm very excited as well to see how this whole piece is
It's
going to
incredible, right?
work out for all of us, right? Now,
Right.
here is my favorite part of the show. I don't know if you're going to like it, but let's see. This is the rapid fire round. Whatever comes to your mind, 5 seconds. Let's talk about it. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right. Coffee, tea, or something stronger when you are in deep delivery mode?
So all of the above, multiple times per day. I really need and use a lot of caffeine.
I can see that. I can see that. The app you can't live without right now.
Right now, Gemini, and partnering that with Google Colab so that you can kind of validate your queries and understand what's going on behind the scenes.
What's one startup idea you'd never pursue or but secretly love?
So this is a bit geeky, but I love the idea of space travel, with SpaceX and Blue Origins and all that. There's a theory that many of your viewers may be aware of. This guy named Alcubierre invented the theoretical model for a warp drive. So I'd love to be able to work on the team that could actually figure out how to get that built. It's incredibly difficult and it's way in the future, but boy, would that be cool.
Wow, that's very interesting. Okay, we should talk more about that, Brian. One leadership habit you swear by, even if it's unconventional.
So mine is actually pretty straightforward. And that's really, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, really understanding delivery, deliver for results. Because if you get results and you have hard data, it's very difficult to talk about, this nuance or this personality thing or all these other dynamics that go into it when bottom line is we deliver. We deliver for the company, the team, and yourself. I mean, that's the most important thing to do because then you can be successful on all fronts.
Love that.
That's my view.
If you could co-found a startup with any historical figure or a fictional figure, who would that be and why?
So that's a tricky question, but I always thought it would be cool to do a startup with the Joker because you'd really have kind of a fun, very extemporaneous, very ready to pivot dynamic for a person that it's candidly very creative, very out there, and very good at getting things done, although not always successfully. So I think it would be a very cool counterpoint,
I love that.
Yeah.
I never would have thought that though, but yeah, you surprised me.
You would really be coming out of left field.
That's the end of our rapid fire, but
Thank you.
it was really fun. Thank you, Brian, for all the good and wise talks today. Thank you for your wisdom. Really appreciate the time. And I would love to bring you back when we talk more Gen AI, and let's have a very, very focused session on Gen AI as well. But really
Great.
appreciate your time. And I'm really looking forward to see what you will do with Mocha.app. Really looking forward to that.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it. This was a great opportunity, and I'm really excited to see what you and your audience can do.
Thank you so much.